Hello, my loves. I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel, where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach to radically and rapidly healing and transforming during and after narcissistic abuse. And this video is about feeling disconnected from yourself, right? During and after narcissistic abuse. This is a very, very, very important point. And it's in response to a comment, actually. So please do comment on the channel your questions, the topics you want me to talk about, because I am really happy to shed some light on this. So I'll read you the comment that I'm responding to. It says, "Hey Ellie, I would love to hear your thoughts regarding dissociative identity disorder, or that feeling of dissociation past narcissistic relationship. What is your take on the spiritual side of it?" And they sent me a lot of thank yous. So thank you for your appreciation. I appreciate you guys back, because I do like talking about this. I do have a wealth of knowledge. And sometimes, what I'm trying to do on this channel is not give you everything you can find elsewhere, right? Because you can look up what a narcissist is. I'm happy to go through the definitions. I have got videos on that, but it's far simpler than the psychology world is making out. I tell you all the time, like, really, a covert narcissist is more of an extrovert, an overt one is more of an introvert. One's going to be very overtly aggressive, one's going to be passively aggressive, and malignant just means how nasty they are, and they can flip and change, by the way. So I don't want us to get too in our heads, because part of the suffering and confusion is that we're intellectualizing stuff that we need to just recognize clearly. Because remember, a narcissist is acting under the influence of an entity of consciousness that they have chosen, by the way. They make a spiritual choice. They know what they're doing. They see your pain. And that's why they follow the exact sequence of behaviors. They're like, all behaving, maybe their individual way they do it is different in the stages of narcissistic abuse, but the stages are completely the same. Yeah, so you can see that it's an entity of consciousness running the show that they're attached to. And when we simplify it and understand that it's a spiritual attack fundamentally that leads to an emotional, mental and physical dysfunction in us, we can heal it on all multidimensional levels, which is what I'm all about. Sovereign, by the way, is my program. Outside Private Coaching, it's the only program I've got on narcissistic abuse, because it's comprehensive. It's going to give you everything you need to heal your trauma and come into your sovereignty, which is yourself. You're going to know who you are again, your authentic power. I take you through things in depth that you've probably never sat with. Yes, I teach boundaries and standards and how to break cognitive dissonance and all sorts of things, but really you're going to know yourself better, because I don't just teach you to talk about values. Like, you could say, well, loyalty is a value. I take you into really digging into what does that mean to you in certain contexts, at work, in friendships, so you can actually set your life up that is true to you. Because this question is so important that was put on the channel, this comment, because all narcissistic abuse is a complete attack on your self and soul, right? It's designed to take you away from you. The narcissist is disconnected at a soul, detached, not disconnected, detached completely at a soul level. They are just in the ego. They are operating on in a very primal, destructive way. Their aim is disconnection of you from your soul, which is why this disassociation comes in. Yeah? You connected to yourself at a soul level, right, is in tune with your intuition, is in tune with your spirituality, knows what's right and wrong, and is in your power. You disconnected from who you are, has low self-worth, questions everything, lives in confusion, has very little personal power, feels helpless and in despair and in trauma. I teach all the time. I teach you how to process trauma. All trauma is stored in the body, not the mind. Spending ages in talking therapy isn't healing a lot of people. They get clarity, but they don't get healing, because the trauma lives in you. In my methods, we stop it living in you. We literally get it out of your body, which is where it's got to be processed from. Trauma has to be processed like we have to process our food. Most of us are kind of constipated in trauma, and that's why we're an energetic match in the universe to more trauma and pain, and we're not able to transcend it. So my work helps you literally process the trauma and at the same time do the thing that banishes trauma from yourself completely, which is align with you. Alignment with myself is what is kind of necessary, because at the point where I'm fully me, all the injury disappears. Yeah? It's the injury to self, your self-concept, your identity, your values, your truth, your authenticity that the narcissist attacks. So sovereign is about processing the trauma, but at the same time bringing you into you, which is why it's effective. And this question is absolutely spot on. I love this comment, not because it's happened to us, but because the disassociation, right, from ourselves is what all the traumas are about at core. Yeah, our self-worth, our self-value, our personal power or authenticity. So children, you'll see this in children and in adults. When we go through a traumatic event, yeah, what happens spiritually? Our soul leaves our body. There's an energy activation in sovereign that a lot of the people in there write to me about, because, you know, they do it regularly, especially when they're feeling very fragmented, right? A piece of us, a piece of our soul stays in that exact time and event, which is why when memories are triggered, your soul got fragmented there. So I do a soul reclamation in sovereign with you, where you get to come, you bring it back, you call it back, right? And you process what you couldn't process. So what happens to us is when we're going through a very traumatic event, we literally leave our bodies. Many of you, I know a lot of people who've worked with me have said this, and I know I've experienced it, have left your bodies during trauma. Literally, your higher self is gone, and that's why you feel empty inside, because you're not fully there and you know it. That feeling of disconnection, that feeling of watching the world around you almost like you're watching a film, but you're not in it. Yeah, massively to do with disconnection from self, that your soul got fragmented and a piece of you was literally left at that thing. PTSD, think about it, guys. PTSD, the flashbacks, a part of you is still stuck in the event, and everything that reminds you of it equals the flashback, makes you think it's happening again. Yeah, I sat with veterans. I studied PTSD for many years. I had no idea that was the cause of all my anxiety until I was 30, my panic attacks. I spent years figuring out what was wrong with me. No one knew. Doctors couldn't tell me. No one knew. I thought maybe I had bipolar because I'd had very intense highs and lows. No, all trauma, all PTSD, all fragmented parts of myself left in places where I hadn't been able to integrate and embody and process what was going on, which is the work I teach people to do so that you release it. All that needs to happen is these events need to be processed. So let's talk about this disassociation. All narcissistic abuse, let's call it attack, because abuse, I don't think it covers it. It's an attack on who you are at core. It's an attack on your dreams and desires. It's an attack on your authenticity. It's an attack on every level, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically of your being. That's what narcissistic abuse is, right? Real narcissistic abuse, not what popular culture are calling narcissists. I'm talking about what we know about here, right? What actually goes on, the very destructive, like just mind-blowing, horrifying things that happen in these cycles. So what I want to say to you is that, what do I want to say about it? On a spiritual level, your soul left your body, you vacated, you just left. And you get to call those pieces of you back. There's an activation I do that's very good. Energy work is the quickest way. The work I do is the quickest way. It's what healed me out of these things. You call parts of your soul back. You know that there's a part of you stuck in that event, and during it, the reason you can't remember a lot of it is because you left the building being your body. Energetically, you left. It was too much. You weren't able, see, and it's actually a survival mechanism. Know that. It's actually handy in some ways, right? Because it was too much for you and your nervous system to be fully present with at the time. That's what really happens. And that's why we disassociate. It is just too much. Your system would have combusted with it. But the thing is, as part of our healing, it's like a cleanup, right? It's the bits I haven't, no, it's not talking about it that's going to heal it though. Yes, we have to break cognitive dissonance, and there's a lot of work I do in something about, we have to acknowledge what happened to us. We have to actually claim it as ours and integrate it. It's not about like separating from the part of us that went through something. It's integrating it in a way that we can process and come into basically neutral again in our nervous system, that it's resolved. We're no longer basically subconsciously looking for similar traumatic events because we're looking for something to help us resolve it. And that's what we tend to do, and that's why we stay in the cycles, because when it's left unprocessed, when we're left unsovereign, what happens is we'll attract something very similar again, because subconsciously we're looking to overcome it, right? But actually, what's better than having to go through it again and seeing if you can overcome it, because a lot of people aren't going to overcome it, they're going to get much more traumatized again and just stay in trauma, is to resolve it energetically. So know that all disassociation is just separating from you and you, the higher self and the body, physical and ego self, right? Nothing wrong with ego. Ego is a part of us, but like we have to have everything in balance. And so we disassociate when we're not aligned, in alignment with our soul truth, our authenticity, who we really are, our core essence, which is what the narcissist attacks, right? I teach you all the time. I'm opening another channel today on manifestation, by the way, because I've got two things I'm offering us as a collective. I really love to create communities. I'm really passionate about that. So I've got Sovereign, which is a community. I'm now building it as a community for us to come in and stay in and do the work and get regular coaching and support and grow and evolve. It's a co-creation, what we're doing here. And I've got Live Fully Now, which is a manifestation kind of plug-in. And I've got a new YouTube channel, which I'll put the link to, where we're just going to talk manifestation, because after you've healed and created space, right, trauma blocks manifestation, but then you're going to come into your true self, your true life, your true dreams and your true heart, and that requires us knowing how to manifest the life we actually want. Yeah, because otherwise it's a big void. So all this dissociation is where you're soul fragmented. Yeah, a piece of you is stuck in the event, and that piece of you that's stuck in the event, if you don't claim it back and like kind of reclaim it, then because you know it's missing on some level, you'll look for other events like it, thinking that's where you're going to find it and overcome the situation and get that piece back. But actually, energy work is quicker. Sovereign work is way quicker. So the feeling of being lost, the feeling of not knowing ourselves, not trusting ourselves, a big part of the dissociation, what it does to us, we don't trust ourselves, we don't trust each other, and we don't trust the universe and the world. We might not even trust God at that point. Yeah. And so the only way that we could cope was to disassociate, and this happens on a spectrum. So like the smallest level of disassociation is things like, I people please, I put on a mask, I'm not authentic, I'm trying to stay safe, so I'm being who I think you need me to be, which is what the narcissist trains you to do. At another end of this spectrum is people who like literally split personalities, right? Because they've just gone on overdrive, like they don't know who they are and they're just trying on all these different things. It's like the system's just, none of it's true almost, like, but pieces, they don't know how to integrate all of who they are, right? So they just fragment it out into separate personalities completely. All of it is a combusted nervous system with soul fragmentation going on. What we want to do is come home. Right? Sovereignty is a sovereign source of self in our own essence, in our own truth, no longer governed by what anyone else thinks of you. That's not the relevant thing. The question is what's true to you. Coming into yourself, right? Not looking for the world to validate you anymore, not defining yourself by what you have or what you do, you know, starting, which we've never been taught, most of us, and we need to be taught this, with actually who we are. And actually that comes down to our core values, right? The person we want to be. When we don't, you know, like when people say, well, who are you? That's a difficult question actually, because most of us will say, I'm a mother, or I'm a teacher, or, you know, I'm someone who drives this kind of car. That's how we kind of know ourselves externally. But the sovereign process is, how do I come into my heart? Because your heart is the information you need, right? It's a journey of healing our hearts, coming into ourself and our essence, so that we know who we are at a core level and call our soul back, that we actually are going to be guided by our soul. Because when you call your soul back fully, right, then it's going to want to work with you. And a lot of us have been trained not to trust our intuition, not to follow those soul nudges that are actually leading us to our greater good. Yeah, you can't be following your soul and in narcissistic abuse because your soul is screaming in those dynamics. So disassociation is a function of the body, right, and the soul that is a protection mechanism because you're going through things that you were not equipped to handle on a physical level and an emotional level. So it had to happen. But in order to become, I mean, you're always kind of whole, really, right, on one level, but we've got to get those fragments back, right? And then we've got to commit to ourselves, which is part of my sovereign process, to live our true lives, a life true to us. We've got to strip back all the stuff that we clung on to be safe, to be liked, to be validated, right? Because all the narcissistic abuse cycle, again, is basically on a survival program. You're doing what you think you need to do to survive on some level subconsciously, right? To be loved, to be safe, right? To survive. What we actually need to do is call all pieces back, right? Live by our own values, come back into our true essence and agree with ourselves, because ourself and our soul have to make an agreement here. Yeah. The soul will only leave us when we're not being true to ourselves or we're going through something too harsh for us to be able to stand. So then the soul is going to want to guide you. You've got to make an agreement with your soul now to let it guide you, to be true to it no matter what. I have done so many, I'm going to share more things on here with you of my stories, because some of the moves I've made are massive in my life in terms of they make no sense. To anyone else, I'd look like probably a lunatic, but I wasn't a lunatic. I was trusting my soul and I had to put it first. It never led me astray. I did walk through some hard times, but I mean, it's always going to bring you to your highest evolution. So you can't be looking outside going, well, I'm crazy to leave this job, or, you know, what will people think if I leave my marriage, or, you know, all the doubts and worries and fears that the narcissist and society often have programmed into you. You've got to decide, I go soul first, because your soul's only going to walk this journey with you if you're intertwined. I do the infinity signal a lot in Sovereign, but you know, like, your soul is the infinite part of you. It's asking you to walk with it. You fragment as a protection mechanism. I don't believe there's much that you can't come back from. I've been in some really bad states in my life and I managed to call myself back, right? You can even say, higher self, come to me now. But you've got to agree to listen, you see. You've got to have a safe container where your soul's safe. So this disassociation is your disconnection from your true essence, and your soul will come back, but you've got to walk with it, right? So you haven't got to figure out who you are. You've got to be prepared to be guided, right? So we have to walk life a bit differently when we're soul connected, yeah? We don't get things because it's what everyone else says that we should have. We find out who we are and what's right for us. And we listen on a soul level and we let our soul guide that journey, and we walk in partnership, in infinity. We walk our true path. So just know that no matter how disconnected you feel, right, you can actually drop back in, you can actually drop back in very, very fast, right? In the energy work I do, and also just like soul reclamation work where you choose to. But again, think about a relationship with your soul essence. Think about, this is a partnership. This isn't just like, I want to feel full and whole, right? Because that's impossible without the relationship, the partnership with your soul, which means when my soul says move, I move, right? When my soul says this isn't right for me and I've got to leave something that's toxic, I listen. I've got to be in relationship with myself. I've got to make it safe to be fully embodied, right? Fully embodied in my spirituality as well as my physical stuff. So I hope that makes sense. Any other questions, let me know. Please join Sovereign. I'm doing it completely different. I'm not launching it every 2 months. I'm leaving it open, running the Q&As. You'll get all the recordings. It's open now. You'll be able to stay in it until, I'm keeping this round open until August 30th next year, right? So the point of it is an ongoing journey that you get to share, that you get to keep breaking through, that you get to be applying this work, sharing it and building a community of people who are not, it's not a narc club where they're just sharing stories about narcissists. They're all talking about their own growth. They're all talking about what they're healing. They're all talking about the pieces they're putting in together. Do some people go back and rebound to a narcissist? Of course, often rebound is part of recovery, but it's a growth journey on a spiritual evolution to bring you into your highest vibration, your truest you, your authentic power. And this healing work is something you will repeat, because these cycles, it's not like you just get rid of a narcissist and everything's done. There's healing and transformation that has to take place, right? Which is why I'm leaving it open for longer and wanting to build a community around it, because it's so great when you are in the energy of people who are breaking free, making big moves, choosing themselves, doing things differently, right? Saying absolutely no way is this my life. I'm going to love, I'm going to connection, I'm going to be my full expression of self and soul. I'm choosing a different type of life, and I'm going to create it with people who are walking beside me brave, right? No matter where I'm at in the cycle, you can still be living with a narcissist and being sovereign. You can be at any stage of this journey, right? Because the work, your timing is your timing on how you do the things. People teaching you just leave the narcissist. I know people 10 years out of that relationship still in chains over it. It's not just proximity, it's the evolution of ourself, right? So any questions, let me know. I'm going to put the links below. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. Anything you want me to talk about, please comment. I'm here to give you what you need, what you're not getting elsewhere, because I can give you clarity on things that matter, rather than keep you studying narcissists. Knowing so much about them doesn't heal you. Knowing who you are does. I love you, and I'll speak to you soon.